Afternoon, guys. I'm Dave Canterbury at the Pathfinder School. What I wanted to do today was I wanted to show you a trap here that a gentleman named Dowie showed me at the Pathfinder gathering. He is one of Jamie Burley's students, proteges if you will, and he can be found on my Facebook page very frequently. I can't pronounce his last name, so I'll try not to butcher it and not pronounce it, but his name is Dowie. He does have Indian blood in him, and he's studying under the Pathfinder system and with Jamie Burley right now. And he showed me a trap that was pretty interesting this weekend. I wanted to kind of show it to you, not as a mainstay to your trapping entourage per se, because I don't like complicated traps. I don't like traps that take a long time to build or set, and I don't like traps that take a lot of complicated notching. This trap's not too complicated. It's not too bad. It is a killing type trap. In other words, it is meant to absolutely kill game. It's not a deadfall. It is a killing type spring-loaded trap. You can make it all with cordage. You don't have to have any type of spring-loaded engine device. You create that with the cordage that I'll show you in a few minutes. And the components are fairly simple for this trap. I'm going to go over these components with you one by one or little by little so that you can get a close-up and understanding view of how this trap works. So stay with me. Okay, guys, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the trigger system to this trap. The trigger system to this trap is what's called a Promontory peg trigger system, and basically it is a very similar bait stick type device that's used on several of the Mojave bird traps and bird traps that we've shown throughout the Pathfinder system and on past videos. If you look up the Acapulco bird trap, the Mojave bird trap, a lot of them have a breakaway type trigger, and that's basically what this is. It's a section has been cut and cross-sectioned here with a point carved onto it, and then the other stick is just a cut stick, blown on both ends. Very simple to make. And it stands here so that you have the point sticking out, and that becomes your breakaway trigger device. So you'd bait this point, and as the animal tries to remove the bait from this is a baited trap, it would break away the triggering device. Okay? So you have a triggering device that you have to build. Then you have basically a trap foundation, as I would call it, and that's basically just two pegs. You notch out the pegs here to tie your rope to, and you have one peg that goes in the middle or one separator that goes in the middle. It's just chopped off on both sides. A handsaw and a decent knife could create this stuff very quickly, and the trap is set into the ground in a fashion like this in an H, because you're going to be pulling against it, and so since you're going to pull against it, you need that separator in there to hold them apart to create your tension, and I'll show you how that works in just a minute. The only other component to this trap besides cordage is your killing device, which basically is just a sharpened stick. You could fire hardness if you wanted to, and you cut a channel in that stick and just take another stick that you notch out here and here, and you put a split in that stick so that you can put your killing device in there and wrap it with cordage here, and this becomes your killing device in your trap. This comes down and kills your prey animal. And I'll show you how to set all this stuff up, but I wanted to go over the components with you a little at a time so nobody got confused as we went along. Okay, so I got this camera down here close where you guys can see what was going on so that we can assemble this trap. The first thing I need to do is, I've got my trigger, like I said, Promontory peg type trigger, and it is, like I said before, it's a stick that's got a step cut into it. It's been pointed off to put the bait on, and then another stick that's just been sheared off on both ends that will set on top of this one to form a trigger device that looks like this when it's done. So you've got your bait sticking out here, you've got a step brake trigger that breaks this direction as the bait is pulled away. Alright, we then need to assemble our killing device, and what I have is just a split stick here that's been notched, and we'll show you what that notch is for in just a few minutes. And then this killing device has been cut down here and here to slide inside the split of the stick, and we'll tie that in there solid with some bank line. So we'll just cut off a piece of bank line here real quick. And we'll just lash this on here. What I usually do when I'm lashing something is I just take and put a loop in it with an overhand knot just like that. I leave myself some tail so that I can use that to tie off to. Put that loop through this one to create a slip knot effect like this, and that's where I'll start my lashing, just like that. And I'll leave that tail hanging up on the side right there to lash down to and tie off to later. And I want to tie that in there real good and tight. That's the good thing about bank line. Because it is tarred, it kind of grabs on and creates a good binding. and I'll exit one time over this side just like this, and then I'll come back and I'll X over the other side like that, and that leaves me that tail right there. I'll wrap it around the peg here one time, and that leaves me 2 tails to tie off, and I'll just tie a square knot in that, and I should have a good solid killing device there when I get done. Let's tie that down good and solid in a square knot. Square knot is right over left, left over right. Should look like a square when it's done. Just like that. Now if we wanted to, we could burn those ends down with a cigarette lighter or something like that to make it more semi-permanent, but that's not going anywhere. That's pretty good and strong. So that will be our killing device. And we have our trigger. So now what we need to do is we need to set these in the ground solid. Okay, so to set this trap up, we want to put these in the ground about the distance of our separator. So I'm just kind of shoving them in the ground by hand to give myself that spacing that I need. Then I'm just going to pound them in with my tomahawk or whatever I have available. I'll pound them into the ground. And I want those down in there good and solid. Now when I put my spacer in between here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of rope, a loop of rope around this. So I'm going to measure that out real quick and just see what I need. Something about the size of that should be enough. That loop right there. So again, I'm going to cut myself a short piece of bank line here. Just like this. Now that I have this loop on my structure, I can begin to twist this down. Now I have to remember which way I want this to come back, because this creates the engine for my trap and I want it to spring back this way. So I'm going to wrap it the opposite way. And now is when I'm going to need to put this separator in here, down low. It's got to be below, it doesn't have to be right below, but it has to be a little bit below here to hold these apart. So I'll push it down in here, just like that, because it needs to be below my killing device. And then I'll just wrap that killing device as tight as I can get it. Okay, so now the object of the game is just to wrap this tight so that when it's set off, it comes down and kills the animal. And I'm not going to wrap this over tight. Once you get it to there, that's when you set your Promontory peg device underneath your trap. And we can shorten that up a little bit if we need to. But that peg needs to be sitting so it's kind of a hair trigger in there. Just like that. Okay? And I'll show you how that trap works right now. Okay, so here's a side view of our trap. Right there's our killing device and there's our triggering device. With our frame, we've wrapped that cordage tight now, and that's what's holding tension on this. I'll grab a stick here real quick. And what would happen is the animal would come in, and you can see this is your bait stick, and when he gets that bait, you can see how that thing swings around in circles. It's only going to swing around the one time for the tension you've got underneath it, and that's going to drive that stake into the animal. Okay, so again, from a little bit further away, you would wind this trap up like this to create your engine. This is what comes down and kills your animal. Then you would set your Promontory peg. And you can do that pretty much at one hand, very simple. And just put it right up against your killing device. And you can put it anywhere in here. The further you put it back toward the trap, the better off you're going to be, because the better chance you've got of having that animal under the trap when the killing device comes down. And a lot of times with any trap like this, the harder it is to set, the touchier it is, the better it's going to be when the time comes. Okay, so you've got that set. Again, your bait is right here on the end of this stick, so that when the animal comes in to get that bait, he gets whacked by that pointed device and pins him basically to this frame of this trap. When you come up, your animal should be pinned right here to this trap. Okay, I'm Dave Canterbury, again with the Pathfinder School. And a trap like this that you build would be a trap you'd take with you. If you're going to take time to carve components and things of that nature, when you're done with this trap, you want to take it with you and save it for the next time. You don't want to have to rebuild something like this, you know, every time you turn around. So you could build something like this in camp while you're sitting around waiting on other traps to work. Take these out, set them up, come back to camp, and you just got more traps out there working for you. Remember, trapping is a percentage game. It takes a lot of them. It is not the best method for securing game necessarily, but it is definitely the lazy man's way to secure game, because these traps will work for you while you're sitting back at camp, conserving your hydration and regulating your body's core temperature. So until the next video, I thank you very much for your support, and I'll see you the next time.